I'm Snaps, and this is the pack, the Snap Pack. Everyone, say hi. Welcome everyone in. We typically talk a ton about mental health and mindfulness and a lot of ridiculous stuff. So if you come back or if you stay with us the next couple of hours, once we go off of front page and I can put my channel back on mature audiences, you will understand we're typically very vulgar and ridiculous here, but we got to tone it down for the purposes of mass audience here. But this is a place where you can be your full self, where you can get weird with it, have some fun, be a little goofy, and talk about it whether you're having a good day or a bad day. We are not believers of toxic positivity. We are not going to try to pretend that life isn't hard sometimes, that things are not tough, that things are not painful. But we are going to make sure that we keep ourselves from staying there. We're not just going to talk about the hard, painful, awful things. We're also going to remind ourselves that we can get through it, that we're here together, we're here for each other, and that we're okay. We'll get through it. We're going to continue to work on ourselves and do what we can day by day by day. So keep that in mind. It's a weird, wonderful place with regular emphasis on mindfulness and mental health. We do meditations together. We have regular community nights. So if you're an artist or a musician or a poet or a writer or really just any kind of creative type, we have community nights twice a month at least. We just did an open mic night, and you can see examples of some of our community nights and some recap videos of what our stream is like. If you want to see that, you can go on my YouTube. But yeah, we just had our open mic night. We're going to have an art showcase night this weekend, and then in a couple weekends, we'll do another open mic night. They're really special things. They're open to everyone. You don't have to be a subscriber or anything like that. It is open to anyone who wants to participate and show off their stuff. So everyone gets 5 minutes on the mic to show off whatever it is they want to show off. And again, all of the recaps, and you can kind of see how the past open mic nights and the art showcase nights go. You can see all of that on my YouTube, so go check it out. And it used to be every Friday, but we're doing it probably 2 Fridays a month. We have this recurring segment called BARS, and BARS stands for Becoming an Anti-Racist Society. As a part of our mindful awareness, we are also acknowledging that racism lives within us and in our systems, and the only way to eradicate it is to notice it and start working on it. So if you want to join for those discussions, our next BARS episode will be this Friday, and that's at 10/9 Central. And we talk for a few hours. There's a group of us who have conversations about racism and anti-racism and all of that necessary work and all of those necessary topics related. So I would love to have you all join us for that. There's certainly so much room for all of us to grow in this. And again, there's more examples of BARS on my YouTube. I do game a lot, but today will not be one of those gaming days, and I do spend a ton of time in just chatting. So when I say I really look forward to getting to know you, people in chat can attest, I really look forward to getting to know you. That is one of my greatest joys in life, is being able to show up here and learn about you and be there for you in whatever way it is that you might want or need. So the Discord's open to you. We do bi-weekly video chats through the Patreon. So if you want to have a Zoom call with some people who will help you and us, like we all work together, there's people in here who have been to those who can kind of attest to how wonderful they are too. It's usually under 15 people that show up for those video chats, and we review shades, which I'll get into later. But more importantly than that, we are just there to talk. What are you going through? What have you accomplished? What are you proud of yourself for? What are you struggling with? Whatever it is, we're there for you. We're here for you now. I think I've done the thing. I think I went through the majority of the important stuff. Yeah? Yeah? Are we doing it? I think so. Okay, so if you're a little newer here, or maybe you just haven't been around for one of these, when I do mental health streams, I like to share my story. And part of that is not so that we can start this comparison process of like who's got it worse or anything like that, because we're all dealing with stuff. But I think it's important for you to kind of understand where I came from and how I got to where I am now, so that it can hopefully click a little bit. So, the person who you see in front of you today is not the person I was just a few short years ago. I was introduced to meditation and mindfulness only recently, like in the past few years, and it completely changed my life. So I want to share my story in hopes that you can see that when I say I understand where you're coming from, I do. I used to work in the corporate world, and I taught sales training classes and different types of training classes. And when I was a corporate trainer, I was a very young woman at the time. I was like, I think 25, maybe, when I started leading the classes. But I was definitely in my early 20s, and I didn't exactly feel this overwhelming sense of respect coming from the people I was teaching, because a lot of them were much older than I was and had been in the field for a long time. So what I would tell them in the beginning of all of my classes is like, listen, I know I'm here to teach you about sales, and you probably think I don't know enough to teach you about sales because I'm young and whatever, but I've been in sales almost my entire life. Like, that was my predominant, that was one of the things I did the most. So I would walk them through some of my experience in selling motorcycles, because I sold Harleys for a while, or some of my experiences with selling cars or selling swimming pools or anything, because I've had so many different types of sales-based positions. So as soon as I was able to explain to him, like, everything I'm going to share with you is not just stuff I read in a book. Everything I'm about to share with you is stuff that I experienced myself, that I learned how to work with and make money doing. And then I got the additional knowledge from the books and from the resources. So I wanted my folks in those corporate training classes to understand that I'm not just going to sit up here and tell you what to do without trying to make it clear that, like, this is what I do. So I just want to let you know that that's kind of how we're going to go about this. I'm going to share my experience with you, talk about how my life was, how I felt, and then we'll get into what I've started calling the 5 steps to better mental health. And that's essentially everything that I did and have done to completely transform my life and my experience of that life, which I'm still so blown away by every day. And anyone who's been here before can understand, like, my name is SheSnaps for a reason. I used to be a really angry person, and that is not me anymore. So everything I'm going to share is stuff I went through and what I've done to work through it. And I want to throw out another reminder. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a mental health professional by any means. I'm an advocate. I do one-on-one coaching sessions where we just go through ways to become more aware, but that's all mindful practices. I super recommend therapy. I super recommend doing what you can to take care of yourself. But yeah, I'm not a professional, so I'm not offering some specific advice based on an advanced degree or anything. I hope you're all with me so far. When I was a baby, I was around 10 months old, my birth mother abandoned me, along with my brother and sister. We were like 3, 2, and almost a year old at the time. And my birth mother at the time was really struggling with addiction and, the mental demons that kind of accompany that. And you're probably hearing my garage door now as my man is leaving. She was struggling with addiction to cocaine and was in with all the wrong crowds, was really struggling to love herself and stay healthy. And one day she brought us to our grandparents' house under the premise that they were going to babysit us. And she left and didn't come back. So my grandparents, which would be her mother, my birth mother's mother, and her stepdad, so essentially my grandmother and my step-grandfather, she left us with them and just disappeared, and no one really knew where she went or what had happened. But my grandparents were then put in a situation where they had to make a decision very quickly, because my older sister, who was 3 years old at the time, she was born with a rare liver disease called biliary atresia, and she needed constant medical attention. She needed a lot of treatments, and we knew that eventually she was going to need surgeries. She had a surgery at birth called a Kasai, which essentially reroutes bile ducts to prolong the life of the liver. So she needed regular care. And the only way to get a young child regular care is to have a parent or legal guardian there. So my grandparents had to make a decision very quickly of what they were going to do with us, whether they were going to surrender us to the state now that our parent was missing, or if they were going to adopt us and completely change their life trajectory. So my grandparents at the time had only been married about a year, and they had a blended family already. So it was my grandmother had 3 children, my grandfather had 4 children. They were all in like high school, heading out of high school into college. And so when they got married, only that like year before, then suddenly they had 7 kids together. Then my birth mother runs away and they adopted us. So I went from being the youngest of 3 to being the youngest of 10. And through the adoption, our story became more complicated because legally my birth mother is my sister and my aunts and uncles are my siblings. So it's a little strange, but you know, I know that being adopted by your grandparents is not a super uncommon thing. I know that happens. And I heard this joke that I tell every time we talk about this. It was a Jeff Foxworthy joke like a long time ago. I heard this joke of you might be a redneck if you call your mom by her first name and your grandma your mom. And I was like, whoops. So that's my story. So I'm gonna switch things over because to paint the picture, I had to refer to them as my grandparents because biologically, and you know, that's what they were. But now I'm gonna start referring to them as my parents because I was so young when they adopted us. That's what I knew, right? That's my mom and that's my dad, even if my dad is not biologically related to me. So they never intended to become our parents. They intended to be our grandparents and our guardians. But apparently, as we started growing up and talking more, we went from referring to our grandparents as grandma mommy and grandpa daddy, which again just sounds so ridiculous, to just mommy and daddy. They became our parents very quickly without necessarily meaning to. So from my understanding, they never meant to tell us or to lie to us or hide the truth of our adoption from us. It just kind of happened that way. So at some point, apparently one of the neighbor kids let it spill that we were adopted, because from external perspective, it's pretty easy to tell because my parents were my grandparents. They were much older, and having 3 young kids and all of their older children is a little strange. And then you add the fact that we were all darker skinned. Can't tell it right now because, you know, I'm very pale, but I'm half Mexican. My dad is from Michoacan, and my brother and sister have always been much darker skinned than I was too. So especially being in the suburbs of Chicago where we were living at the time, we stood out. It was very evident that we were not white, but that our entire family was. So apparently one of the neighbor kids let it slip that we were adopted, and we were confused by it. It's funny because I don't remember it. My brother doesn't remember it either. But my parents, when I was 7, had to make a quick decision and tell us that we were adopted. So they tried to do it the right way, if there is such a thing. Like, they brought in a counselor to talk to us about everything. And I remember the day very vividly too, because it was Thanksgiving and all of my siblings were there, and we were all just, you know, goofing around doing our thing. And there was this extra lady there, which wasn't super strange because my family has always been like a very loving, welcoming, if you don't have a place to go for Christmas or Thanksgiving, like, you're with us now. My siblings were always bringing people home, like my older ones especially. So it wasn't that strange. I just assumed that this lady that was there was like one of my siblings' friends. And yeah, it didn't quite click. And then I think it was after dinner, they sat us all down and they told us what had happened. And they did their best to frame it in a kind way. So they told us that we were adopted. They told us about our abandonment. But instead of making it seem as though our parents had, or our birth mother had left because she just didn't want us, They basically told us she was messed up in drugs, she was having a hard time. She left you here knowing that we would give you a better life. So she did this for you, not because she didn't want you. So they did their best to create that narrative and to have a positive situation with us, to have the counselor there. And after they explained everything, the counselor kind of like stepped in and tried to like work with us individually. And like, you know, I was 7, my brother was 8, my sister was roughly like 9 or 10. And there was a difference in how each of us took it. My older sister cried. My brother didn't really seem to care. He just wanted to play. And I didn't care because I just wanted to play. Like, I was so young. I was like, so life isn't changing? Okay, I don't care. But my sister was really upset. And like, I remember looking at her. I can remember what she was wearing even. But like, I remember looking at her and just being so confused. Like, why does it even matter? Why does it even matter? She's not here. Like, who cares? And then the counselor had us come and like sit and do this exercise where we all wrote letters to our birth mom as if we could send them. And she was like, okay, so write down like, what kind of questions do you have for her? What do you want her to know? What do you want to ask her? And I asked her if she had any animals, because that was like all that mattered to me. Being a young child, I just wanted to pet and play with animals, and I wanted to be a vet at that time. So I asked if she had any pets. My brother asked if she had a Nintendo. And my sister asked why she left. So it was like a very clear, distinct difference between like how we all processed it, right? But I remember telling myself even at that time, like, it doesn't matter. I wasn't bothered by it, or at least I thought I wasn't bothered by it. But what I didn't really realize was that this small seed had been planted, whether it came from an external thing or not. It was just this small notion of, I'm not wanted. And it became much more apparent that that was one of the reigning thoughts in my mind when I was really young. We had a big family, as I mentioned. After my adoption, I became the youngest of 10. And, you know, as our family grew and they got married and had kids and did all the things, like our family grew and grew and grew. So a lot of times when we would have bigger family parties, we would go to our local church and we would rent out the like gymnasium cafeteria setup, and we would just have our parties there. So I remember one day we were going to some kind of an event, some kind of family party, and I was with my parents, you know, again, adopted. So I was with my mom and dad, my brother and sister, and we walked in the first set of double doors, and it's like doors here and then doors, like you walk in, turn right, and another set of doors, and then there's the gymnasium. So we walk in and we turn, and in that short amount of time of us like seeing the room, we just see everyone we know. And like my parents just kind of went in and head straight to the kitchen to get work done. And my brother was always very high energy, so he took off like a rocket towards some of my older brothers and our I think brother-in-law at that point, some of them, like some of the family. And someone came and like kind of scooped up my sister, because she was always very sweet and very, very cared for, especially because of her condition. Like everyone, like she was a sweetheart and she was treated very, very well because of that. And I remember standing in that doorway and just looking at this big room full of all these people who I loved and thinking like, they don't want me here. No one waved me over. Like, it wasn't like I was deliberately snubbed or anything, you know, there was nothing. There was nothing they did. But I think a lot of us have experienced the feeling of being alone in a crowded room. And that was what I felt there. I felt alone. For the first time in my life, I was just so... I was shook. I looked and I was waiting for someone to wave me over or someone to come and grab me like they did with my sister, and no one did. And as I looked around waiting for that opening, and I didn't see it, it just hit me. I felt like I was dying. I ran out of the room and I ran down the hallway and I found one of the offices in the hallway. I went into that office, into the closet of the office, and I sat down on the floor, like holding my legs to myself, and just started shaking and sobbing. And I had my first panic attack, and I was like 10 years old at the time. And I remember as the feelings kind of subsided, as that holy shit, am I dying thing kind of wore off, I had the thought of like, oh my God, I can't tell him. Holy shit, like, I already know now. And again, this is like a no. This is how our brains tend to fuck things up for us, right? I had this thought of they don't want me here, I'm not wanted. And then I had that panic attack. And I thought, oh my God, not only am I not wanted, but there's something wrong with me. If I tell them, then I don't know what's going to happen. Like, maybe they'll leave me. Maybe they won't want me anymore. So that is my earliest recollection of having the thought of like, I was unwanted. And now looking back, I can see how that led into so much of where my life went. You know, our thoughts really do shape our realities. And I believed I was unwanted, and so my reality shifted to kind of meet that narrative. My older sister, her name was Tanya, she believed that she was a badass. And even with her liver disease and even with all of the challenges that she faced, like, she was nearly unfazed by it. After our adoption, my grandparents, you know, my parents, who were once in a very secure financial position, my dad was a firefighter, my mom was a real estate agent, and like both were very successful in their fields. My dad wound up getting injured and had to retire from the fire department. My mom couldn't do real estate as much because she had 3 young kids, and one of them had, you know, such medical issues. So my dad wound up having to take a job as essentially like a custodian. He worked at this fabric store with like 4 women that were all like middle-aged women. And he basically was just the janitor, the maintenance guy, and whatever else they needed. You got to get something off the top shelf for him. You got to do this for him because it's too heavy, too hard, whatever. And he worked his butt off for not a lot of money. We wound up moving out of the house that we had been living in at the time into a smaller but still very nice, like, we're very fortunate. I've definitely grown up with a great deal of privilege in my life. But my family struggled, and I used to have this binder that I would show during like St. Jude streams and things like that. Because of my sister's condition, there was medical bills coming in all the time. So they went from having, you know, like a houseboat and having this kind of leisurely existence, being near retirement, to suddenly having to care for 3 growing children. The retirement was scratched. My dad didn't get to retire until he was 70, I think, maybe 75. But he had to work really hard. It was very tough because my dad didn't have the easiest upbringing himself, and he struggled a lot with alcohol. And as an alcoholic, he was an angry alcoholic. So there were so many nights where his anger was directed at us. It was a common phrase to hear at the dinner table as my parents would argue about his drinking. Well, I wouldn't have to drink if it wasn't for these damn kids. If it wasn't for these kids, I wouldn't have to do this. There was a lot of commentary related to how our presence had messed him up. So every time I saw our family struggle, every time he lashed out, I blamed myself. I had really gotten this idea that it was my fault. And I think because I was the youngest, it was a lot easier for that narrative to set in. Because my birth mom had my sister, and even though she was born with a liver disease and had to be rushed into surgery right away, doctors said she might not make it through the night, all that stuff, she stuck around. Then she had my brother, and now she's got 2 toddlers that were within a year of each other, one of whom has a liver disease, and she still stuck around. And then she had me, and she only lasted 10 months before leaving. So I was convinced that there was something wrong with me. Like maybe I was a bad baby, or maybe it was just 3 kids is one too many. Maybe 2 is okay even when you're struggling, but you throw that extra kid in and shit's just messed up. So that idea that it was me, that somehow I had done it, really took hold. And then the more that these kind of unkind things got reinforced, the more I blamed myself, the more I learned to really hate myself. And my dad, when we were younger, was abusive. He fortunately did grow out of that. And I'm fortunate that we had a good relationship to the best of what we could before he did pass away last year. But there were some really rough times in there. And one of the worst of those instances was when my brother and I, because we were kind of little troublemakers when we were kids and we were very close, my brother and I were at this campground that we would go and visit sometimes on the weekends. And we were walking around, and we were little kids. Like, this was before 3rd grade. But we were walking around, and we had stolen a sparkler. It was after the 4th of July. We stole some sparklers, and like, you know, as kids tend to be, we were little pyros. We wanted to play around with it, right? So we stole these sparklers. We stole a lighter from my dad, who was a smoker, and we decided to like go for a little walk and like try to sneak away and play with the sparkler. And we were walking down this path with the sparklers in hand, and we had just lit them. And we saw this man notice us. And he apparently didn't like the idea of young kids having lighters and sparklers. So he called out to us. He was like, "Hey!" And we panicked. We were little kids. We don't know what we're doing. So we threw the sparklers in a trash can. Not bright. We're lucky that it didn't start a fire. But we threw the sparklers in a trash can, and we both tried to run and hide. We did not go very far. We went and hid in the bathrooms that were like right there. So he just knocked on the door and was like, "Kids, you're gonna have to come out here." So he brought us to our dad, who was standing outside. He had a fire going and was just like outside of the camper that we had. And as our dad looked up, beer in hand, and saw this man from like the neighborhood, essentially, because that's kind of what it felt like, as he saw this man walking 2 of his kids up to him, he had this very quick shift in his face, where it was very evident to us that he was very angry, but he had this voice of just this big smile went on his face. "Oh, what happened? Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks. I'll make sure to talk to him about it." And, you know, smiled at the guy and sent him on his way. And as soon as the man told him what we had done, that we were playing with sparklers, that we were playing with fire, whatever, however it was that he had managed to phrase it, as soon as he walked away, my dad completely turned. And I think a lot of it was image-based. He was upset to know that, like, he looked bad in front of this random dude. But he got so angry. He started screaming at us and yelling, and he went and grabbed a bunch of our toys, and he stomped on them and threw them in the fire, and was yelling at us. And my brother got more of the abuse than I did growing up. I think part of it was because he was a boy, and I think part of it was honestly because he was darker skinned than I was, but that's another story. But the worst of it was having to watch my dad, with us two with our back up against the camper, just terrified, not knowing where it was going to go. He walked over to my brother, who was standing right next to me, like we were shoulder to shoulder, and he said, "You like to play with fire, huh? You really like to play with fire?" And he grabbed his arm and started holding a lighter to it, and he put a cigarette out on his arm. We were punished for like a day straight over that. I remember, like, he must have been so drunk, like, looking back, to know that he was able to carry on for as long as he did. Because I remember even being sent to bed and then at some point being pulled out of bed by my hair. So we weren't necessarily brought up in an awful environment. It wasn't always that bad. But definitely there was a lot that we had to try to work through and work with, and we weren't really given the tools to do that. My sister, because of her illness and because we knew that she was going to be in and out of hospitals and would eventually need surgery, need a transplant, we were in and out of hospitals with her all the time. And one of the phrases that we heard a lot was stay strong. Stay strong for her, stay strong for Tanya. You want to be there for her in that way. And based on what I had seen, what had been modeled for me, what I had witnessed, emotions weren't things we we really leaned into. It was either anxiety or anger, or you just bottled. So I started believing that tears and that showing emotion was weakness. If staying strong means I have to like be there for her and not get emotional, okay, I'll do it. So one of the things I'm grateful to have learned was this phrase that your emotions are mentionable and they are manageable. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. That's not something that I got taught from a young age. I got taught to stay strong. So as you can imagine, dealing with everything that goes on in a young person's mind and then throwing on the abandonment, the adoption, the abuse, and everything with my sister and everything, just life, the racism, the shit that we dealt with at schools, like, I didn't know how to deal with it at all. So I started with self-destructive behaviors at a really young age. I started smoking cigarettes when I was in like 5th grade. I started smoking weed, I think, when I was like 14, like 13 maybe. I started self-harming through cutting, through drinking, through, you know, getting out and doing things that were not in my best interest. And just to throw this out there too, I'm very pro cannabis and pro psychedelic legalization and the healthy therapeutic use of both. But if you are young, if you're under the age of 25, don't drink, don't do drugs, like legit. Your brain is still developing, and I think everything that I went through was so heavily exacerbated by the fact that I was using drugs and alcohol as an escape rather than an enhancement. So, like, let me be the example. As much as I do still enjoy those things, I don't recommend them for young people, and even for early 20s. Like, just wait till your brain's done developing before you start throwing all the psychoactive stuff in, if you ever decide to. So I went from being a pretty happy kid. Like, I can remember being really curious and really creative when I was really young, and I loved to read. I loved to read, still love to read. But I started to withdraw. My parents eventually realized that something was going on somewhere around when I was like 14 or 15. And again, like, I give my parents credit for doing what they could to try to give us the support that we needed. They brought me to a therapist. So I got diagnosed with severe depression, with anxiety, insomnia, ADHD. I was still having panic attacks, so it was panic disorder, and geez, like, I don't even remember what else, but it was a lot. And they put me on medication. I want to point out that, like, I'm very pro therapy and pro medication for the right folks, for the people who feel like that's something that's necessary for them. But please trust your gut, trust what feels right to you, and even if you're young, you can still advocate for yourself. If you don't trust your doctor, if you don't feel good when you talk to them, please tell your parents. If they don't listen, tell that therapist. I would like someone else. Talk to a school counselor, talk to anyone who can help you advocate for yourself. I didn't know that was an option to me. I still was treating everyone as though they were an authority figure, and I just had to listen. So I didn't like my doctor. I didn't feel she listened to me. And I started out when I was very young. Again, I was like 15, I think. I started out on Zoloft, on 25 milligrams of Zoloft. And I kept going back and telling my doctor, like, I don't like this. I don't feel any better. In fact, I think I feel worse. I'm still struggling to sleep. Like, I can barely sleep. And I still, like, hated myself and I wanted to die. So I told my doctor that, and she said, okay, well, let's see. Maybe we need to add to the dose. Maybe we need to up it. So she bumped me to 50 milligrams. And I went back, same thing. I still feel terrible. I don't like this. I don't want to be on it anymore. And so she bumped it again. And I was at 100. And then, same thing. I go back. Suddenly I'm at 125. At the 125, I was really struggling. It was really messing me up to the point where I told her, like, listen, I cannot with this anymore. I don't want to be on this. Please take me off of this medication. And I had heard that if you just stop taking medications, that they can have really, really dire consequences, which is the truth. Please don't just stop taking your meds. But I threatened that to try to get the doctor to listen to me. I said, if you don't do something, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop taking these. So she said, okay, here's what we'll do. And I remember the hand motions and everything. As we bring you down on this one, we're going to bring you up on another one, okay? So that was the plan, is one goes down, one goes up. So she started me on Wellbutrin in addition to the Zoloft. And the same thing kept happening. I kept going back and telling her that I don't like this, I don't feel good, this is awful. And she would bump it. So longer story short, at one point, I was on 150 milligrams of Zoloft, 150 milligrams of Wellbutrin, and 150 milligrams of Klonopin because my insomnia was so bad. And none of it helped. I felt awful. I was so confused. I was so disoriented, and I just felt sick. Like, I had insomnia so bad when I was in that point that I had gone like a month without sleeping, and I was hallucinating at school. Like, I was so tore up over it. And like, remember, this is me at like 15, right? I was not a huge person. A lot of these drugs were not even approved for youth at the time, you know? Like, people were trying to buy my Klonopin off of me because it was such a high dose that they wanted it because it was a fun drug to them, apparently. So I was a mess. I was on way too many medications. They did not make me feel better. They were making things way worse, in fact. And somewhere in the midst of that fog, of that haze that was going on in my life at the time, we found these baby books. So I was like 15, again, super over-medicated, really struggling, not sleeping, hated myself. And my Nana, my grandmother, who, you know, if you've been following along so far, would be my biological mother's grandmother. So this is my great-grandma, but we were close growing up. My Nana called us and told us that she had found a box that had some of Jill's things, and Jill is my birth mother's name. Because we were adopted by family, it was fortunate that we could hear stories about her and we could kind of understand a little bit more about who she was and how she had struggled before she left. So I was always curious about her, even though I would tell myself I don't care about her. Like, I was always curious. I I remember finding a picture of her once from like 7th grade where she had written her name on the back of it. And I was so floored by it. I was like, wow, do I look like you? Do I write like you? Like I wrote... I tried practicing her handwriting. Just for some like sense of connection, you know? This part is this part tends to be a little hard for me to get through, but we're gonna do it, friends. We got this. So my grandmother calls us and tells us that she found another box of Jill's stuff, and it had some of our stuff in it, apparently. So we went over to her house, and we're kind of excitedly all going through this box, finding all these new things, and we found these baby books. And they were just these little, like, kind of like a photo album looking book that had each of our names on it. It was Tanya, it was Christopher and Jessica, because that's my real name. And we were so excited. Like, I remember seeing them, and we were kind of going through them bit by bit, like one at a time. And we started with Tanya's, and she was the firstborn, and there was a picture of her, and my birth mom had written her information in the front page and had written these little details about like who she was as a baby and all this stuff. And it was cool because, like I said, even just her handwriting was enough for me to be like, wow, what is that like? I was so fascinated by it. So we're reading through Tanya's book and we're learning more about like Jill's experience with her, and I was just like getting so excited. Then we go into CJ's book. My brother goes by CJ, or used to at least. So we go into CJ's book, and it's some of the same things. It's a little picture of him and little details about him and all this stuff. And at this point, like, my young mind is just getting so ramped up. I'm so excited. I'm about to find out what she really thought of me. Like, I had my hopes up because I was really struggling. And we opened my book, and it was empty. And like, this was a long time ago. I don't even remember how empty it was. I don't remember if there was even anything filled in. But it was empty. And at that point, any little bit of hope I had left, any little bit of love I had for myself, it was gone. At that exact moment, it confirmed everything that my mind had been telling me all those years. At least that's what it told me, right? At that moment, I had all the confirmation I needed that it was my fault. I was convinced that I was the reason she left. And I couldn't figure out why, because there was no details in the book. So all I could think is, like, there's something inherently wrong with me, like I'm evil or gross or something. At that point, I fully believed that my life was never going to improve, that I was such a burden to my family and to those around me. I never thought I would have an existence where I was loved. Because I hated myself so much that, like, the love that I did have, I couldn't feel it. So after finding the baby books, at the age of 15, I attempted suicide. I had a short window of time after school some days when I would get home and my parents wouldn't be home. My brother would be out and my sister would be out. And I took the remainder of all of the medications that I had. And I called one of my best friends at the time. His name's Mark. Wonderful person. He's still one of my best friends. And I don't even remember what I said to him because I was so out of it and I was so messed up. But he figured it out. And I remember laying on the couch as the pain started to sink into my stomach and just thinking, like, finally. And then he showed up and he literally kicked my door down. And him and his brother were there and they were like brothers to me, and they called an ambulance and they sent me to the hospital. And my dad got home as I was walking out with the paramedics. And like, really, I never had a chance to talk to him about it. I don't know what he was actually thinking or feeling at the time, but I remember seeing him and he didn't look happy. And my first thought was like, God, I fucked this up too. Now he's gonna be pissed. Like, I'm wasting all this time. He's gonna have to go to the hospital. Good job. You're a burden yet again. So I got really even more upset with myself. So they took me to the hospital and I fought so hard to end my life that day. I broke through restraints multiple times. I was kicking and shouting and doing whatever I could to get people away from me. It took, I don't even remember how many people to hold me down in order for them to sedate me and begin the process of pumping my stomach. And then I went to inpatient into the hospital. I was there for 9 days. And I remember being in there and just thinking, like, I'm gonna do it. You didn't stop me. I just know what I have to do differently next time. I have to make sure that it actually sticks because this is fucking terrible. The hospital was awful. But I decided I was just gonna kind of fake it. I was gonna go through the motions, get myself out of the hospital, and then find a way. And then one day my family came to visit me. I think my sister might have been in school or something at that time, so it was just my parents and my brother. And like, you know, I told you we were raised with the stay strong mentality, so we were not very forthcoming with our emotions with each other. Like, my brother and I would wrestle and beat the crap out of each other, but we didn't sit and like talk about our feelings after. And I remember sitting in my room at the hospital and doing what my family and what a lot of our families have done so well for so long, pretending like nothing was happening, even though we were in a hospital where I just attempted to end my life. But we were just pretending. We were just still surface level talking to each other. And I was doing my best to tell him, yeah, it was just a bad day, whatever, everything's gonna be fine. And then my brother just like leaned over. He was sitting on the bed and he put his head in his hands and he just kind of crumbled and cried. And I think it was the first time I can remember my brother crying like that. And he said, I didn't know. I didn't know you felt this way. I didn't know it was this bad. And that was the first time that I had the thought of like, oh shit, they actually do care about me. It wasn't just like, well, they care because they're good people. It has nothing to do with me. They're just kind. They care about everyone. It was the first idea that showed up that said, people will miss you if you're gone. And that broke my heart to see my brother hurt like that. So I decided then and there that death and self-harm were not the answer. I committed to staying in this world, but I wasn't happy about it. I hoped for a very long time to be hit by a bus or something so that it wouldn't be my fault and they wouldn't have to feel sad because of me, but that they could feel relieved of the burden that I was. So at that age, my life changed in the sense that I had committed to not self-harming in just those ways. I stopped cutting, and I told myself that I would never attempt suicide again. And I'm sorry for any lagging that's going on. I just noticed that I dropped some frames, but it looks like it's kind of stabilized. So I committed to being here, but I didn't want to be here. But since then, I'm grateful that I have learned a lot of very important lessons, and I think a lot of them were delivered in a really hard way, but I'm still grateful to have heard and to have learned those lessons. So there are 5 lessons that I've learned. The first lesson is to accept at all times, that you could be wrong. Not necessarily that you are, but just you could be wrong. And one of the ways in which we like to tell ourselves that we're right is when we attempt to predict the future. Stop trying to predict the future. When I was 15 and I attempted to take my life, I did it because I foolishly believed that every avenue I had imagined, every path that my life might take me on, I imagined that all of them were going to lead me to the same place, and it all sucked. I didn't want any part in any of it. But I could not have predicted the future no matter how hard I tried. None of this could have been predicted. What I do right now didn't exist at the time. I couldn't have predicted this. It wasn't a real thing. And another thing I could not have predicted was the return of my birth mother and how that would impact my life. It was just that next year, I believe. I think it was like right after I had turned 16. My birth mom showed up in our lives again. And it's so wild how it all happened. We got a letter. My oldest brother, which again, if you've been following the story, I know it's kind of weird, but my oldest brother, which would be her brother too, got a letter from her because he was the only one who she could track down. My mom was terrified of her coming in the middle of the night and like trying to steal us back. She was a little paranoid about it for a long time. So like, I don't think we were listed. I think she wanted to make sure that we weren't able to be found. But she found my oldest brother, and she sent him a letter explaining that she was clean from drugs, that she was married, that she was living in Texas, and that she had 3 young kids. And my parents, after my brother told them about it and shared the letter with them, they brought us into a family counseling session. And in this family session, they distributed copies of the letter and told us everything that was going on, and that she had reached out and let us know what was going on, that she was safe and everything, and then asked us what we wanted to do about it. They said they'd support us whichever way we wanted to go. And I read the letter and wasn't particularly impressed. I was still very angry at the time. And I saw it and I said, I don't care. Like, I don't want to see her. I don't want any of that. And life is such an interesting thing. On that letter, she included her AOL information, her AIM, her AIM. I'm that old. If the lighting and makeup fooled you. So I don't remember doing it. But at some point, I put her AIM name in my friends list and then forgot about it. And I think it was months later that I was on the computer, on the family computer in the living room late at night, just doing something dumb. And I heard the little noise that indicated someone had come online. And I was like, what's that? Who is that? I saw the name, but I didn't recognize it. It wasn't like her full name or anything. It was just a name. And if any of you are old enough to also remember AIM, you know, like we would look at it and say, like, oh, this could be any number of my friends, who knows? So we would just like send a message, who's this? Because you might have changed your name or something. So without thinking, because again, it's late at night, I'm just thinking it's a friend or something, I just sent a little message and I was like, hey, who's this? And she responded and said, who's this? I was like, no, who's this? And she responded and said, Jill. And I sat there staring at my computer like, who the fuck's Jill? Like going through all my friends, going through all the thoughts that I had, and I could not place it, and then suddenly, boom, it clicked. And I was like, oh, fuck, what? I was so blown. And then she asked again, what's your name? And so I responded, and I put my full name in. I said, Jessica. She's like, Jessica? Jessica who? And I put my full name in. And then she did that, and she responded with, oh my God. And I can only imagine that at this time, both of us just sat at the computer staring at it like, what the fuck? It was shocking for us to realize who we were talking to. No one else was awake at the time. But we wound up talking for a while. We wound up communicating through instant messenger for a while and connecting. It was really nice. So we started talking more and more. And at a certain point, I told my mom that I was talking to her and that I wanted to meet her. I was the first one in my family who wanted to meet her. Everyone else was very much uninterested in that. And she and her kids came from Texas to meet. And my mom, again, was like very nervous about the whole thing. And if you remember, this is her family too, my birth mom's, and she hurt them when she left. So a lot of them were not ready to talk to her or see her. The whole idea was hard because we spent so long. My mom tried to find her for a long time. There were private detectives or private investigators hired. Like there were all kinds of things that were done to try and track her down. We didn't know if she was alive or dead. Like we really just did not know. We had no sense of where she was. So when I told my mom I wanted to meet my birth mom, she said, you're not doing it here. Like she did not want her to know where we lived. She didn't trust her. And it's understandable given that she hadn't seen her in, 15 years. She was very concerned. So I had to go and meet her in a public place for the first time ever. And that's actually, you can't really see it very well, but that's what these coordinates represent. The first time I met my birth mom was in a public mall. And like, as I was saying, for this being like the first really important lesson, accept that at all times you could be wrong. I was so wrong about where I thought my future was going. I was so wrong about this feeling of like thinking I won't ever have the type of love that I want in my life. And then I met my birth mom, and I met my younger siblings. And they were the cutest fucking things I've ever seen. My God. Hold on, I think I even have a picture. The first time I met them, they grew up knowing who we were, but I didn't grow up knowing who they were. I had only recently learned about them, and that was kind of wild. But the first thing I remember is us like seeing each other at the mall, and my birth mom saying like, there she is, go say hi to your sissy. And I was like, my goodness, if you had told me that someone would call me sissy and I wouldn't want to puke everywhere before that, I would have called you a liar. Like I would not have believed it. So she said that, and the kids like looked at me, and I could just like feel this wonderful love from them. Like they just had the most beautiful little smiles. Hold on, I think I have a picture here. This is us at the mall. The first time that I met them. And that's a Tiger Army shirt, just in case you were wondering. You do need that kind of context. That's important. But that's my little sister Jasmine, my little brother Joe, Jose, and my little brother Franco, who's looking at some pictures off of this little Polaroid camera I had. But they just came and gave me the biggest hugs, and we played together for I don't even know how long. In this, like, if you were to see this whole room, it was like a tooth themed like play area where there was like a giant toothbrush and apple and all this other dental related stuff, and we just like played there for a long time and had a good time, and my god, I fell in love with them. Like, they're so wonderful, and I 100% could never have predicted how that would change my life. And oh, I wish I had an even more recent picture, but this was from even a few years ago. But like, they are wonderful, and they're my very best friends. But yeah, like I couldn't have predicted that. Oh, here's a probably better one. This is a little more recent. My brothers got tall. How dare they? Accept at all times that you could be wrong, because you really never know. You really never know. You think you have some idea of where your future might be headed, but there's so much that you just can't account for, that you can't predict. I could not have predicted that I'd be in this job. I could not have predicted that my birth mom would come back with 3 young kids who I would fall so in love with. I'm forever grateful for the way my life changed. And I know some of my family is likely watching this right now, so if you're crying, like, I love you, we're getting through some of the hardest shit. Ugh. We're trying to get my little sister to move out to Phoenix right now to live with me, and I'm really excited for that. Like, she's my very best friend, and my siblings in general are my best friends. They're so wonderful. But the main point is, I could not have seen that coming. I could not have predicted that. I could not have predicted the love that I have in my life because of their presence. So that's lesson number 1. Quit trying to predict your own future. You're missing so much. You really never know. And in general, in your life, always, always know that you could be wrong. And as long as you keep that mindset, you're open to someone being able to prove that to you, to your circumstances being able to prove that to you. It's okay to be wrong. We are all ignorant to so many things, but it's okay. It's up to us to find that ignorance and correct it, to learn as much as we can with an open and a loving mind. Lesson number 2 is a very hard lesson. I mean, I guess all of these were. Lesson number 2 is that the mind-body connection is real. Real, real, real. The mind can impact the body, and the body can impact the mind. They're both super important in us taking care of ourselves. My sister had that liver disease I mentioned. She wound up having to have 3 liver transplants in her life. And that is a massive undertaking, to be on the transplant list for as long as she was, and to have to actually go through the transplant process. She was a badass through all of it. Through all of it. The first time that she went in for her first transplant, she was a kid, she was a teenager. And the doctors were telling her, okay, so here's the deal, you're gonna go in for this surgery. It's about a 24-hour surgery, and when you come out of it, you will probably be on the ventilator for about a week before you can begin to, do your breathing on your own and kind of move into recovering. My sister hated being on the ventilator. Anyone who has ever been on a ventilator can relate, and I'm sorry for any of you who have family members that may be on one now or may have had to experience that. But she had no interest in that. And my sister had this long history of basically proving doctors wrong. Like when she was born, they said she wasn't going to make it through the night. And her little spirit was like, mm-mm. And she made it through the night. And then they said, okay, she's not seeing her first birthday. And she proved that wrong. And then they said she's not seeing her 5th birthday. And she proved that wrong. And then they said, okay, but because of this disease she has, it's very unlikely that she'll ever reach healthy adulthood. Like her body won't develop properly. She's not going to get to grow up in a totally normal way. And she did. So after a while, the doctors stopped trying to guess with her and say when she was going to die on us, which is so awful to have to hear so often. And they just started watching the show, right? So on her first surgery, the doctors again tried to tell her something that she disagreed with. And they said, okay, you're going to be on that vent for about a week. She was like, nah, I'll probably be off that same day. And they were like, okay, little guy, like they didn't believe her. They were just trying to temper her expectations. They were like, no, you're going to be on it for a while. And she was like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to be on that. She told herself that after surgery, she would be off of the ventilator the same day. And she fucking was. She was off the vent that same day after a 24-hour surgery where they literally swapped out an entire organ. I think she was on fast track to recovery within like a week. The way that she healed from that was nuts. The mind-body connection is real. She set her mind to it. She told her body what to do, and that thing listened. She wound up growing up to live a pretty healthy, mostly normal life. She even, when she went away to college, she wound up getting pregnant, and she had a baby that she gave up for open adoption, and he is beautiful. She was so good at handling everything with grace. She never complained. There was never a question of why me. None of it. And my sister and I actually moved in together. After she came home from college and after I left a bad relationship, we wound up having to live back with our parents because I moved out when I was 18 and she moved out for college, and then we both had to go back. So we had a little taste of freedom, and then we moved back in with our parents, and it was like one night too many of being told I can't have cereal for dinner and to get off the computer late at night, that kind of shit, before I was like, I gotta get out of here. So my sister and I decided we were gonna live together. So when I was like 19, just close to 20, we moved in and we got this awesome rental house together, and it was so great. We had all kinds of parties. Like our house was the party house for the longest time, and it was so great. And when we moved out of that house, we moved into another one that was this like very old house in this place called Woodstock in Illinois. It's like a really cute downtown area. If you're familiar with the movie Groundhog Day, it was actually filmed like streets away from where we were living at the time. So we were having a good time. We were enjoying living together. Like we fought, we battled, we were close in age, and we were sisters. There was some stuff we dealt with, but we loved each other and we were really close. And like in the mornings, we would tend to go into each other's rooms and like use the other as a pillow. I would go in and just like lay on her, and we would talk about whatever, our days and stuff, which after I saw pictures of us growing up, I learned that this was apparently something that we had done for a long time, that we just had a habit of sleeping together and using each other as pillows. So it was nice knowing that we were doing this even into adulthood. This was how we would start our mornings, essentially. So we were living at that house in Woodstock when she got sick again, and it was bronchitis. She got bronchitis, and it got worse. Her immune system was a little weakened because of everything and because of the medications and everything, and she wound up getting sick and having to go into the hospital because of her bronchitis, because it turned very quickly from bronchitis into pneumonia, and from that into necrotizing pneumonia. And it was a really scary time. But the crazy thing is because my sister had been through so much, like physically, because of her surgeries, because of everything. Like at this point, this was 3 liver surgeries later, 3 liver transplants later. And we kind of all just started thinking she was invincible, I think. So even though it was always scary and we would kind of like get all of the family together and be in the hospital with her and we'd take shifts so she was never alone and all of that, like, we weren't really afraid, you know? Like there was still this like she'll get through it kind of thing. And she did. Like she wound up having to be in the hospital for 3 months and it sucked. She didn't enjoy it. But I was still working at Harley at the time when she got released from the hospital after 3 months in. And my mom brought her by my work and she was just beaming. She was so happy because she had just been discharged and my mom had bought her a little mood ring at the gas station that they had stopped at to get gas because my sister loved the movie My Girl, so she loved mood rings. She had this cute little mood ring on her finger. And she had a bag of Junior Bacon cheeseburgers in the car because she loved Wendy's Junior Bakes. After surgeries, after hospitalizations, that was always the first thing, is go get a Junior Bake. So she stopped by my work and I gave her a hug and we talked a little bit, and then my mom said she was going to come and stay with my parents for just a few days as she continued to recover from being in the hospital. She was going to need a little extra care. And God, she was lit up. And this was in March, and if you're familiar with the like Chicago area or Illinois area, like the weather is wild. It was a beautiful day when she came to visit me, and then overnight there wound up being a blizzard. So she was staying with my parents, and in the middle of the night she cried out for help because she was in a great deal of pain. My mom and dad rushed her to the hospital. And they found out that the pain had been caused by a blood clot that had formed in her leg. So they brought her to the hospital. They right away tried to kind of reverse it. They put her on anticoagulants, blood thinners, to try to help make sure that the blood clot wouldn't cause any kind of problems. And they wanted to airlift her to a different hospital in Wisconsin because not every hospital is equipped to deal with someone who has been through transplants. Like there's a lot to consider there. So they tried to get her airlifted to this hospital in Wisconsin, but the blizzard hit, a random March blizzard. So they couldn't. So instead they had to call for an ambulance to take her on a long drive up to Wisconsin to this place. And I remember being in, it's like an ER room, kind of like a small holding area, with a lot of our family crowded around her, and just seeing the look on her face. For the first time ever, she looked so unhappy. Well, actually not the first time ever, because she really struggled at one point. Before one of her liver surgeries, she got really depressed. And the doctors actually told her, like, listen, not in such terms, but they basically told her, like, you've got to feel better or else we can't put you in for a surgery, because if your body is depressed, it's not going to fight. So she wound up having to go through counseling while she was in the hospital before her final liver transplant, because they were not about to put her on the table unless she was going to fight. So that was like the first indication of the mind-body connection, was the idea that, like, if your body needs a new liver but you're depressed, they won't give it to you because your body won't take it. That was shocking to me. So this was only my second time seeing her at a point where she was so almost angry, but definitely sad. She was frustrated. She was not happy to be going back into the hospital after just getting out, after 3 months in, yet again, her life being uprooted. And at one point it was just us in the room, and I was upset because I could feel she was upset, and I kept begging her to fight. Like, you're gonna be okay, you're gonna get through this. And she was just shaking her head, and she was just kind of staring, and she was like, just let me go. She was so upset. And I was crying. And I was telling her, like, you have to fight, you have to get through this, you're gonna be okay. And I told her, Tanya, if you die, I'm gonna die. And I said that so many times, if you die, I'll die. And the doctors came back in, and they told her that they had gotten the ride for her, and that 2 of the nurses that were on staff that night that were going to be getting off soon had agreed to take the trip with her up to Wisconsin because my parents had to drive their car. So these wonderful nurses said they'd ride with her. And the doctor said, you should take off your jewelry now so you don't have to do it when they get you up there in case there's anything they need to do. And she was wearing that mood ring that my mom had bought her the day before. And as she took off the ring and handed it to me, I told her, I was like, Tanya, I'm gonna hold on to this for you, but I'm giving it back to you when you come home. And she didn't really say anything. And the moment I put that ring on my own finger, I knew my sister wasn't coming home. We all hugged her, we told her we loved her and that we'd see her soon, and I went back home. I was dating someone at the time, and my boyfriend at the time had just moved in with the 2 of us only a month or so before that. So I went back home with my ex and tried to go to bed. And maybe like 3 in the morning, one of my older sisters knocked on my door. And as soon as I saw her outside my house, I knew, but I didn't want to know, you know? And she came in and explained that my sister was apparently in pretty good spirits and was talking to the nurses all the way up to the hospital. And as they got into the parking lot, she just went quiet. Apparently, at some point when she had fallen out of bed when she found the blood clot, when it was hurting really bad, and she must have bumped something in her abdomen, and when they put her on the blood thinners, it contributed to her starting to internally bleed. So, by the time they made it to the hospital, it was too much, and she had internally bled out. So, my sister was 24 when she died. And to this day, like, I'm still so convinced that it was because she gave up. Because she had been through so much more, so much worse. And every time that she decided she was going to make it through it, she did. And this was the one time where I felt her not wanting to make it through it. And I lost my sister, I lost my best friend, my roommate. Before she could even hit 25. So that's lesson number 2. The mind-body connection is real. You have to take care of your mind, and you have to take care of your body, because they both feed each other. They both really matter. If you don't want to be here, you will feel that in your body. And if you don't take good care of your body, you're going to feel it in your mind. Don't give up. Lesson number 3 is to trust your gut. I didn't like myself, and so I definitely didn't trust myself. I went through bad relationship after bad relationship after bad relationship, and I thought at one point that I had found the one, and this was the guy I was dating when my sister died. Because I didn't have a good enough connection to myself, because I didn't know how to listen to my gut when it was talking to me, I ignored so many red flags and so many gut instincts that told me this is not the one. So many. I wound up being with that guy for almost 9 years. I was still dating him when I first started streaming on Twitch. And it was a really hard relationship. He was very emotionally abusive, very manipulative, very controlling. I wasn't allowed to have any privacy. If I was even in the bathroom too long, he would come and knock on the door. Like, I couldn't have passwords on my phone. I couldn't have passwords on my social media, nothing. One day, after my sister had died, I was really depressed. I was really struggling, as you can imagine. I didn't think I would ever lose her. We had all these plans, like she was planning on moving to Vegas. We had all these plans of what we were going to do in the future and how we were going to live near each other and raise kids together and everything. So I was heartbroken. And I wasn't met with as much understanding as I think I deserved. And I remember one day I came home from work and found out that he had gone through my journal, which was just like a notebook, but, you know, he knew what it was. He knew that it was mine and that it was meant to be private. I had had it for years. And he had gone through it, read the entire thing, decided he didn't like it, and he ripped it up. One of the things that he read in there was an entry where I was talking about a past relationship, how I was feeling bad because I had declined sex from a previous partner, and I felt bad because I didn't want to impact his self-esteem by turning him down. And he read that, and that was one of the things he first brought up, was that he was disgusted because I had been turning him down for months after my sister died. And he was convinced that I loved or liked my ex more than him because I don't even seem bad. There were no journal entries about me wanting or feeling bad for turning him down. And he found notes about some of the people I had been with before him. And he was so disgusted by it. Because part of my self-harm when I was growing up included promiscuity. I didn't love myself at all, and when people expressed any kind of attention towards me, I had a hard time not thinking that that was what I was supposed to go towards. Is if someone's attracted to me, oh my god, they like me, that's incredible. So I got into some really rough relationships because of it. I was with some people who I should not have ever given the time of day. And then there was just some like healthy casual sex, but that he didn't understand either. But the majority of it was me just not liking myself. So he ripped up my journal and he threw it away, and then he made me write a list with all of the names of all of the people I had ever been with. He made me write all of their names down, and then he berated me for it, for being such a disgusting slut, for being so worthless, for being so gross. And at the time, I remember still believing that he was right, that he had found out the truth, that I was just trash, that I was awful, and that if it weren't for him, I would have continued on this path of being trash. So I I felt like I had to beg him to stay with me, because otherwise I was never going to find another person who treated me well, because the boyfriend I had before that hit me. The first time I told that my previous boyfriend I loved him, he slapped me in the face because I wasn't looking him in the eye when I said it. And he would pinch me and bite me and do all this crazy shit, like he tried to choke one of my friends. So like when I started dating this guy, I was like, well, at least he doesn't hit me. That's good, that's positive. Like what do I expect from myself? Do I actually think I deserve something better? Like, look at me. You know, I still, even after meeting my birth mom and after my siblings coming into my life, I still felt like I was the source of all problems in the world. So when he started telling me that I was a piece of shit and that I was a slut and I was disgusting, I remember dropping to my knees and crying and saying, I'm so sorry, please don't leave me, you're right, you're right, you're right. And him looking down at me. He was sitting on like the edge of the couch and he was looking down at me with this disgusted look on his face. And he said something to the extent of me being lucky he was with me and saying that I needed to change because I don't want to be a slut anymore, right? And I was like, you're right, I don't want to be a slut anymore, you're right, that's not who I am. And after that became like kind of the defining feature of our relationship, was me constantly trying to prove that I wasn't who he told me I was, so that he would love me, so that he would be kind to me. Because sometimes he would be nice, and then other times he wouldn't. And when he wasn't, he always had a reason, and it was because of me. It was because I didn't deserve that. Because if he was nice to me, I would just continue to be a dirty slut. I would continue to do all this awful shit. And at one point he told me that if I was more like my best friend and my niece, who had only been with one man, and it was the man that they married, that he would have married me a long time ago. But when I would talk about wanting to get married, it was always that I wasn't ready yet, that I wasn't there. And when we would talk about kids or something, he would use all kinds of things to tell me that was not going to happen. That was the bait. It was always, when you get to this point, then I'll marry you, then we'll have kids, then you'll have this life you want. But whenever I didn't go with whatever he wanted, it was another reminder, this is why we can't. Like, you don't keep up with the litter box. How are you going to have a fucking kid? You can't be a mom. You'd be a terrible mother. And that broke my heart because I've been an aunt since I was 3. Like, I love all of my nieces and nephews. I've practically raised kids since I was a kid. I didn't love myself. I didn't trust my gut. I didn't believe that I deserved better, so I stayed. And it just got worse and worse. Like, I wasn't allowed any freedom. I had to dress the way I was supposed to, the way that he wanted me to dress, because the way I dressed before was not his style. I had to speak a certain way. I had to do certain things. There was very limited freedom that I had in that. If I had trusted my gut, I would not have been with that person for 9 years. I would not have been with the person before him for almost a year. I would have left the first time that they pulled some shit like that. You deserve better. All of you. You really do. No matter what your past includes, no matter how shitty of a person you might have thought you were, or how many things you may have done, you don't deserve that kind of abuse, that kind of treatment. So lesson number 3 is trust your gut and really learn to understand yourself. Know who you are so you know the difference between anxiety thinking and gut talking. Lesson number 4 is you are in control and you're not alone. You're the only one who gets to decide the direction of your life. You don't owe anyone anything. I thought I owed him more time because of the time I already put into the relationship. I thought I owed him more time because we had shared trauma together, because we lost his mother and my sister while we were dating, and both were very hard on each of us. I thought that was it, you know? I felt alone everywhere I went, but I wasn't, and you're not. Even if it feels that way, you're not. We love you here. There are more people who care about you, but if you don't like yourself, you might be missing it because you're blocking it. You might not see that there's so many people who love you, who will love the authentic you, because you're so trapped in your own self-loathing. And I've been there. So please remember, like, there is so much you can do for yourself, and you are not alone. Like, there is this community. We will do what we can for you. There are other people who can be there for you. And if you are able to, be there for others. Heal yourself so you can help them see how it's done. You all saved my life. Like, genuinely, you saved me. When I first started on Twitch, I was still in that bad relationship with that guy. I wasn't allowed to talk about it because he was convinced that if I told people I had a boyfriend that no one would stick around, because the only reason people watch female broadcasters is to try and have sex with us, obviously. So I was just talking about this yesterday too. He used to watch, he would be in my streams all the time, and then after stream, he would show me clips or parts of my stream that he found to be irritating or annoying or gross. Like, you shouldn't be doing this on stream. Don't try to crack your neck on stream because you look dumb when you do it. And I'd be like, yeah, but like my neck hurts. If I want to stretch my neck, yeah, it's gonna look weird, but whatever. So he would tell me all the things I said and did wrong, all the ways I made an ass of myself, all that kind of stuff. And in general, he was very angry and very antagonistic. Like, if he got mad at me and I tried to walk away, he would follow me. And if I tried to go into a room and lock the door, he would open that door and he would come in and continue to say what he had to say. I tried to get him to at least agree to not start stuff before stream because it was really hard for me to focus on, at the time when I first started streaming, it was all a front. I was trying to be a friendly, chill streamer, but I was secretly just raging and miserable. And I remember one of the days when he was really unkind before stream and I was really having a hard time with it. And we walked past each other in the hallway as I was getting ready to start, and he just it's like he looked through me. There was no thought of she's having a hard time. And previously, when I would tell him, I'm really still struggling with depression, I think I want to see a therapist, he would accuse me of trying to cheat on him, or he would mock me. Oh, poor me. Oh, my life is so hard. Poor me. I need to go to a doctor because I have too much. Really shitty stuff, right? So I remember that day, him, seeing me and not caring that I was hurting. And I sat down to stream and, tried my best to pretend to be okay, and I started getting DMs from people, little brief messages from people saying hey, are you okay? You seem like something's a little off. I'm here if you want to talk. Or I would get a message out of nowhere from someone in the community that would just say I don't know what's going on, but if you ever need someone, I'm here for you. And messages of hey, you're beautiful. In case no one's told you that, you're beautiful and you're great. And really kind messages that didn't feel like they came with attachments. And that shocked me because my previous experiences did not have me believing that people would actually just be kind for the sake of being kind, not because they had wanted something from me. But I remember that clicking for me one day, holy shit, you see me. You see me as a person deserving of love and kindness, and the person who I'm trying to commit my fucking life to, who won't give me the time of day, doesn't see that. Who's wrong? The kind people or the jerk, So I finally decided I was done. I ended the relationship. I kicked him out of the house. And it was really tough. It was really tough. He stole my PC to try to get me to talk to him. I had to threaten to call the cops on him because he was refusing to accept the breakup. I took a few weeks off of stream because I wanted to process and kind of go through everything. And during that time, I just put out kind of a basic message hey, I'm gonna be taking some time away from stream, because again, no one on stream knew that I was in a relationship. So to tell them like I was about to leave a relationship would have been confusing. But I just told him like, I'm going through some stuff. I'll be gone for a little bit. I'll let you know when I'm coming back. And I got a lot of messages from people in the community who reached out and were like, hey, I don't know what you're going through, but if you need a friend, we're here for you. And it was so kind and it was so wonderful. And someone who has been a part of the community for a long time and someone who I used to play with all the time, we had this recurring Monday segment where we would play Trials, and we'd call it, this is for Destiny players, we'd call it Trials of Chill Cyrus, where we would, just play not to win, but play to have a little bit of fun. We'd, have a little bevy, maybe a little, and it was nice. So it was me, my friend Dopa, and my friend Money. And Money was one of the people who reached out when I was struggling and sent just a kind message again, like, I don't know what you're going through, but if you need a friend, I'm here. And we started talking more. And we wound up bonding over music during that time, over Alina Baraz, actually. And I didn't even know really anything about him other than what I knew from stream. Like, I didn't know what he looked like. I didn't know much. I just knew that I loved playing with him and that we were friends. And once we kind of realized we liked each other, we FaceTimed and wound up talking for like 7 hours the first time. And he was living in Phoenix at the time and I was still in Chicago, so we dated long distance for a couple of years, and then he moved to Chicago to live with me. We did that for about a year, and now we're living in Phoenix together. And he is the most wonderful man I've ever known. I'm so intensely grateful for him. You don't even know. And in 4+ years of dating, he's never once raised his voice to me. He's never called me a name. And we even struggled at the beginning of our relationship. We broke up twice because it was so hard for me to like process being away from my ex, like, because it was like a third of my life with that guy, But even when I broke up with him, he just sent me the nicest message and said, I'll never regret any of our time together. I'll always love you. I'll always miss you. And I wish you well. Like, and I felt that he genuinely just wanted me to be happy. And that blew me away. But we managed to figure it out and get back together. And it's just been wonderful ever since. But it's crazy, right? Because I spent so much time thinking that I was alone, and it turned out I wasn't, that I had this massive support system, and that I even had someone who could be the love of my life, who I had been gaming with for years, and I couldn't see it. I couldn't see it. So please remember that additional lesson, that you have so much you can do. And when you start taking those steps, you'll start to see that you're not alone. You'll start to see that the universe is on your side. Like, you got this. We got this. Lesson 5 is just be here now. That was one of the things that he helped introduce me to. It's just presence, and I'm forever grateful. So remember those lessons as you go about your days, and know that, like, really it's because of this community, it's because of Twitch, it's because of the kindness of strangers that my life is forever changed, and I will do my best to pay it forward until the day I die. I will do anything I can, anything, to try to help you see that you're not alone, try to help you see that there's so much you can do for yourself, and that there's so many people who want to help you, so many people who just want to love you and want you to see that you're deserving of that love. So everyone sit up again, take a nice slow deep breath, shake out any tension. I know we talked about some really heavy stuff here, but there's no need to be fully tense. Release any tension in your forehead, your jaw, your shoulders, your butt. No booty clench. I'm here, you're here, we're safe, we're here now together, which means we live to fight another day. So shake it out. And we're going to go into the 5 steps to better mental health. And I have a post on my website about this too. If you do ! Take control, a lot of this is outlined there. A lot of it has changed over the years or has evolved into what it is now. But this is the stuff that I would work on with like my coaching clients. This is the stuff that I work on in this community. This is the stuff I did for myself to start feeling better. So again, please remember, like, I'm not a doctor. Everything I'm sharing is stuff that I learned through my own experiences, because when my boyfriend and I started living together, I thought I was chill. Like, I knew I dealt with anger, but I thought it wasn't that bad because I had been living with such an angry person for so long that I looked chill by comparison. And it wasn't until living with Money, whose name is actually Alex, it wasn't until us living together that I recognized that now I was the angry person in the house. And the first day that I noticed him tiptoeing around me the way I used to have to tiptoe around my ex, because I was angry about some shit. It wasn't even about him. I was just angry. I would wake up angry. I would go to bed angry. I would pray for reasons or for people to try me, so I would have a justification for pointing my anger outward. And he is chill. He is the most chill, compassionate, kind person ever. And when I saw him having to avoid me, it killed me. I did not want to be that person anymore. So it was at that point that I really committed, like, we are making a change because you deserve better. You deserve better. So I was sick and tired of being sick and tired and angry because I was still depressed. I was still dealing with so much while we were together, but I just thought I had it together more than I did. And he introduced me to meditation, which was kind of the first step towards me really changing my life. So this is all stuff that after I was like sick and tired of being sick and tired and angry, I started researching bit by bit and started implementing and doing what I could. One of the things that I think is super important, if we're getting into the 5 steps now, is step 1 is just to get organized. Get organized, y'all. Like, if you're just kind of floating and meandering through life, it's going to be a little harder for you to change it. So in all of the successes I've accomplished in life, in jobs where I did well and got a lot of promotions, all that kind of stuff, it was all because I was organized. I have my physical copy of lists that I make, and I have my little planner, and I have alarms set and notifications on my phone. I do my best to keep myself organized, and this is even with being, having ADHD thought patterns. Like, that is one of the most important things. The odds of you changing your life if you don't start making some lists and getting yourself organized go down substantially. So get organized. Clean up your house today, friends. Clean up the spaces. Throw out the crap. Go with the Marie Kondo vibe. And if you need to read her book, it's a great book. She's got a series on Netflix that's incredible too. I loved her idea of looking at everything in your home and asking yourself, does this spark joy? And if the answer is no, then you throw it away, you rehome it, you do whatever. So do that in your homes. Try it. It's surprisingly wonderful and not as awkward as you would think, I guess. But after I did that, after I started looking at my things with this mindset of like, do you bring me joy? If not, let's get you out of here. I started applying that same mindset towards my relationships. So when I say get organized, it's get yourself organized and create some structure in your life. Clean up your space, make it easier for you to keep it clean by getting rid of some of the junk, and eliminate the toxicity in your life. You do not owe anyone anything. If you have a relationship where after you leave this person or after you get off the phone with them, your first thought is like, oh, I gotta go and like talk to someone about this. I gotta vent it out. Oh my God, I'm so ugh. If there's people in your life who you still talk shit about, why are they in your life? Save yourself. Like, be free. It doesn't matter if they birthed you. It doesn't matter if they've loaned you money in the past, like pay back your loans and stuff. But like, you don't owe anyone your time or your mental attention. Like, you can wish them well, you can send them love, but it does not matter what their relationship is to you, what shared history you have, what they've done for you. If they are just pulling your energy, take a break. You don't have to do anything unkind. You don't have to tell them to fuck off, but you can just say like, I need space. I'm going to take space for myself and enforce your own boundaries because you deserve that. So please, please, please remember that. Step 1 is get organized. Get yourself structured, clean up your spaces, do your best to keep them that way, eliminate that toxicity, look at all those relationships. Does this bring me joy? If the answer is no, let it go. Let it go. Step 2 is to get social and try new hobbies. And this one I know is really tough, especially given that we're in COVID times, right? But our brains can get some benefit from video chats, from FaceTime, from Zoom, from playing games together online. Don't get lost in it, please, but don't lose contact with people just because you can't hang out with them in person. Continue to talk to people, continue to try to find new friends, continue to engage with others and with the world. And try new hobbies, challenge yourself. Novelty is a powerful thing in our minds. And there's interesting studies that show how good creative hobbies and like writing and things like that are for your brain and for your body, including your immune system. And something as simple as getting like a coloring book with those like beautiful little mandala patterns, that can help reduce anxiety. Like there's evidence of that. So try some new hobbies, do the things, start from scratch somewhere, allow yourself to suck at drawing for the sake of being the amazing artist you'll be in the future. Try the new stuff, read the books, do the stuff. That is crucial, genuinely. So again, step 1 is get organized. Step 2 is get social and try new hobbies. And when it is safe for us to travel and see each other again, this community is going to have so many meetups. We are going to be all over the place hanging out because we love each other and we love you. So more friendshipping is in your future, and we friendship hard. Okay. So step 3 is one of my favorites, and this is something that we lean into in stream all the time. And I want you to remember this super cheesy phrase. Your future is so bright, that you have to wear shades. Okay? Remember that. And then know, shades, this is your self-care. This is so important, okay? This is 3. Shades stands for sleep, hydration, air, like going outside and getting a walk if it's reasonably safe, diet, exercise, and stillness. And stillness covers things like meditation, which I super strongly recommend. It covers things like practicing gratitude, like journaling, all that kind of stuff, therapy even. Include that stillness in your life. You need more wind down and wake up and intentional time to yourself. So if we're talking about self-care, if you're struggling right now, if you don't know what to do on any given day and you haven't done the steps to get yourself organized, then you don't have creative hobbies yet. Remember shades and start there. And we're not trying to get to a perfect point. None of us are perfect. And we deserve a little bit of fuck around time in life, right? So if you look at shades as like an 80-20 thing, try to make 80% good choices so that on the 20% you can just be like, meh, fuck it. I'm gonna be a blob today. I'm gonna eat the crap I know isn't good for me, whatever. But the rest of the time, try to do your best. And if you do ! sleep, there's a post I made about sleep that might be able to offer some insights on ways you can get some more rest at night. But those are so important. Sleep is going to impact your memory, your energy levels, obviously, like your cognition, everything. And if you have any predisposition in your family towards Alzheimer's or dementia, sleep is even more important because of what it does for your brain while you rest. So please prioritize sleep. Hydration, super huge. Like just 1% below optimal hydration is enough to cause headaches, and start with the mental fatigue. Start with that fog. Our bodies are like mostly water, you know? Like if you want to feel energized, if you are struggling with hunger cravings or whatever, maybe there's some need for more water. Stay hydrated. And one general way of looking at it is just try to get your pee as close to clear as you can. You don't want it to actually clear because that means that you're probably overhydrated. But as a very general rule, because there's always some room in here, as a very general rule, just try to keep your pee mostly clear. Drink a lot of water, keep yourself well hydrated, and it will likely help you to retain a little more focus, a little more energy, and your skin will thank you for it. Like there are any number of things why this is so important. And please, please, please remember, we love our environment. So get a reusable water bottle. Don't be the person who just buys tons and tons of plastic bottles, okay? Not trying to shame you, we're just making choices here. So that was sleep, hydration. Air is the next letter in shades. And air is all about getting yourself out of the house sometimes. And I know again that given COVID, this is extra challenge, but we are not people who shy away from challenges. I know you're not. So get out. If you have to plan one weekend a month where you drive out or you take public transport out to a park where there's green space, that's so wonderful for your mind and for your mental health. Go and just like sit out on your front step or on your patio or whatever. Like, go get fresh air, and whenever possible, get yourself into nature. Because there are a lot of studies that show that nature, not only is it so incredibly grounding to be outside and to have that fresh air, even if it's cold or hot, you know, take precautions, do what you gotta do, but get yourself outside. And there are studies that suggest that memory can be drastically improved by more time in nature. And awe, like AWE, things that put you in awe, has been shown to be effective at reducing or eliminating a lot of the symptoms that are associated with things like depression and even PTSD. Awe is a powerful force against that, and you're most likely to have experiences of awe out in nature. So go for those walks, go check out those places, do the things that might be a little challenging, and allow yourself to be awed more. And if that's not an option for you, you can also experience awe through music and through, you know, art and poetry and whatever. Like, I'm in awe every time we have these community nights. They're so incredible. So keep that in mind. So that's air. Go outside if you can. Prioritize it. I know when I start to feel a little overwhelmed, being outside can be just like, whew, wow, everything is in perspective now, you know? And friends, I see that there's like a bunch of messages and stuff that I'm missing. So if you have questions that I'm unable to answer today, my DMs are open everywhere. Like, feel free to DM me for clarification. I'm very happy to talk more about this or to point you in directions of resources. Or you can join us for one of those live video chats, like the one on this Saturday, through the Patreon, and we can talk about it in greater detail. But yeah, that's important. Get yourself some sunlight, get yourself some air, get yourself into nature. So we've got sleep, hydration, air. And for sleep, I didn't cover this, but I should really quickly. Have a wind down and a wake up routine. Allow yourself to wind down and release everything from the day, and then allow yourself to wake up and choose what you want for the day before you go to social media or whatever. If you think about the fact that we're taking in data constantly, we are, you know, going from thing to thing to thing, screen to screen to screen, listening to music, we're having sensory experiences, we're having all these different thoughts. By the time you're ready to lay down at night, if the first time that you have any moment of stillness is when you put your head on the pillow, your brain is gonna light up and it's gonna be like, hi, I know you want to sleep, but we got some stuff to review. It's like your secretary. You've collected all this, it wants you to figure out what to do with it. So if you give yourself that wind down time before you go to bed to look at that, to see what you've collected throughout the day, to see what you can release, to see what you need to make a note on, to see what you can reframe, you're allowing yourself the potential for a better night's rest. So keep that in mind. And then in the morning, like, don't let the outside world tell you who you are before you even have a chance. Don't let it tell you where your focus should be before you have a chance. Stay off social media the last half an hour and the first half an hour of the day, at the very least. Keep your phone out of your bed. If you can, your bed and your bedroom should be for only two things. One of them is for, you know, and the other is for sleep. If it's not one of those two things and you're not like in a position where you have to use your room for all one thing or whatever, like, try to create that separation because it'll help. And all of that is outlined in that sleep article I mentioned. So ! sleep if you want to learn more. Anyway. Sinful activities. Yeah. for doing sex. Anyway. Sleep, hydration, air. The D, I'm going to give you my D in shades. The D stands for diet. And again, my friends, I know that the word diet tends to lead people to think, oh God, I've got to totally like restrict all kinds of things and live this miserable existence where I don't get to enjoy all the foods. No, that's not how this is. We're looking for 80-20. Can you make 80% good choices for your diet, knowing that, my God, when you have a cleaner diet, the energy that you feel, the less, like the lack of discomfort that you might notice from being bloated, from being all bleh, like, it's not a good feeling. We need more nutrients. And if you're eating a ton of heavily processed foods, if you're relying on predominantly fast food and energy drinks to provide you with energy, you're going to be stuck in that cycle forever. Start eating more vegetables, start eating more fruits, maybe cut back on some of the processed stuff, maybe add in a few things you know you need to eat more of. Your gut is your second brain. Like 95% of the serotonin that makes its way to your brain starts in your gut and then travels through neurotransmitters. Like your gut health can impact your personality, it can impact your sleep, it can impact your energy, your focus, a million different things. Look it up. You will be blown away by how much your microbiome can change your experience. So make 80% good choices. If today you've made a lot of unfortunate choices for yourself, no need to judge, but just make a plan to stop now or make a plan to eat something healthier tomorrow. Do what you can and know that like the things that we have to do for ourselves, we're not always going to like them, but do it anyway. This is not about motivation. This is about discipline. Personally, I have benefited a great deal from intermittent fasting. I've been doing that 2 or 3 years now. And I used to struggle a lot with IBS. And I also, have ADHD. So I used to have a lot of stomach issues. And since I started fasting, I don't have IBS, or at least I don't have issues from it anymore. And because I eat during scheduled windows now, it's so nice because I don't just like wander into my kitchen and like open up all the cabinets and just stare. I'm not just like eyeballing my food. Like, is this it? Do I want to eat? Do I not want to eat? Should I eat that? Oh, I'm bored. I should eat again. A lot of my focus has been able to be returned because of the energy levels that I feel now because of fasting. And it's not for everyone, but I have a podcast on my MindOfSnaps podcast. I have one about fasting, and I can potentially point you to some resources, but it's worth looking into. See if it's right for you. It has really helped me. And I don't fast because I'm trying to lose weight. I fast because this is like the lifestyle that I am sticking with because it helps so much. It helps so much. So do whatever it takes. Do the research, like your own body, but start paying attention to your body. Start paying attention to what goes into it because it is so important. So sleep, hydration, air, diet, make some changes. 80-20. If you have 80% good choices for yourself in terms of diet, when you have those 20% days where you're like, fuck it, I'm going to eat a whole pizza, it will be the most satisfying thing ever. People who watch my stream a lot can attest to how much I enjoy food, how much joy comes out of a simple pleasure, including the junky stuff sometimes. But it's because I don't eat it very often, so when I do have it, I'm like, this is so incredible. It's so incredible. The next letter in shades is E, which stands for exercise. And really, like, it's just physical activity. You don't have to go and do some wild, crazy shit, but, like, you gotta move your body. You gotta stretch your body. If you want that beautiful body of yours to carry you through more of life with energy, start taking better care of it. The American Psychiatric Association mandates 30 minutes of physical activity a day as a part of, like, mental health treatment programs. So 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes around lunch, 10 minutes in the evening, move your body. It doesn't matter if you're doing some gentle yoga, if you're going for a walk, if you're just vacuuming and trying to like hold your body in a healthier position as you do it. Move. Take the stairs more, do that stuff. You absolutely have time for 30 minutes a day of physical activity, and you are going to be blown away by what a difference any number of these letters like will make for you. any of them will start to impact in such a profound way. It blows me away still. So, whether you want to or not, whether you're feeling motivated or not, exercise. Get it done. And then the final S in shades stands for stillness. Meditation helped me release so much anger. Meditation has helped me to see things more clearly. It has helped me to see my own patterns more clearly. And the practices that go along with meditation and mindfulness, it's all about awareness. You start noticing more non-judgmentally. You just look at all of it. You're not hating it. You're not mad it's there. You're just looking. And while you're looking, you're saying, do I want this? Whatever this thought pattern is, whatever this behavior pattern is this something that I want to carry forward to tomorrow? And if the answer is no, you allow it to be there and you choose something else. So if you catch yourself thinking unkind thoughts towards another person, notice it. Notice the judgments. I see that. I see I was judging that person for their clothes or something stupid that doesn't reflect how I actually feel. I'm going to let that go, and I'm going to choose to refocus myself onto wishing them well, or thinking something kind, or creating an affirmation for myself. Affirmations have been so instrumental in me being able to change my own thought patterns and my own behaviors. So stillness includes that too. Like an example I use all the time is skincare, right? Because you can use affirmations in a broad sense. I am confident, I am articulate, I am calm, I am compassionate. You start telling yourself these positive present tense I am statements, or I am a person who does kind of statements, because your brain is always listening to the stories that we tell ourselves. And when you go on autopilot like we all do, your autopilot is going to behave according to whatever the dominant patterns are in your mind, whatever belief systems you're operating on. So if you start changing those and you take action on the behavior, shit's going to change for you. So a very small example is I wanted to be a person with a good skincare routine. I wanted to be like all of these women and people who I idolized who, you know, go and they wash their faces every night and they exfoliate and they moisturize and do the whole thing. I wanted that for myself. So rather than just saying, I wish I was a person who did that, I want to be that person, I started telling myself, I wash my face every night. I'm a person who washes her face every night. I love washing my face every night. I'm the type of person who washes my face at night. All that. Over and over and over again. I put it on my mirror. I wrote sticky notes. I took every opportunity to tell myself that every day. And I actually washed my face every night. Whether I felt like it or not, I forced myself into the bathroom to wash my face. It took about a month of me being ridiculous with saying this to myself over and over, to the point where I would walk down to the hallway to my boyfriend's office and I would knock on the door and I'd be like, hey, did you know that I'm the kind of person who washes their face every night? And he'd be like, yeah, babe, of course you are. And I'd be like, I know, right? I'm the kind of person who washes my face every night. I used to be able to like yell down the hallway and be like, hey, what kind of person am I? And he'd be like, you're the kind of person who washes your face. And I'd be like, you're right, I am. All the time. I started doing that and did that for about 30 days, for about a month. For the first time where I was sitting on the couch and I did not want to wash my face that night. And I was thinking, I'm not even wearing makeup. Like I could just go to sleep. And for the first time ever, my brain lit up and was like, excuse you. You are a person who washes your face every night. You told us that. Get in there and wash your face. You know that you're going to feel so much better once you do. You know you always enjoy the feeling when you put on the lotion and you go lay down. It's so nice. Go wash your face. And I got up and I was like, okay, God, you got it. I'm going to go wash my face. Like it was the first time ever in my life where my brain did what I wanted it to do for me, where my brain started telling me what I had told it. And it was shocking and so incredible. And you can use that in big ways and small ways. So like another person in this community started telling themselves that they were a person who keeps their kitchen table clean. They committed to keeping that kitchen table clean. It's over a year now, and that table is still clean. You can do this. You can reprogram this beautiful human suit that you're going for a ride in. Because you're not the body, you're not the brain. You are the consciousness or the soul or the spirit or whatever you want to call it. That's who you really are. All the rest of what you think is you is just roles that you switch in and out of throughout your day. You have a person who you are when you're around friends. You have the person who you are when you're around your kids or when you're around work. The fact that you can switch so effortlessly between all these different roles is indicative of the fact that none of them are you. You are who you choose to be in this moment and every moment after. If you mess up, it's okay. Choose again. You got this. So shades again, friends, if you are stuck, if you don't know where to go, start with shades. Ask yourself, what can I do? Because our brains like to do the whole, can't do this, can't do that, can't do that. Oh my God, I would love to do that, but that's not possible. When your brain goes that route, notice it and say, okay, brain, I got a question for you. What can I do for myself to help achieve a little more balance in my life? And then think about shades. Okay, brain, what can I do in terms of sleep, hydration, air, diet, exercise, and stillness? Maybe I need to go meditate. Maybe I need to go for a walk. Maybe I need to exercise a little bit. Where am I lacking? Where can I improve? And again, if your brain is like, that's not important. I don't want to do that. This is all the stuff you should be doing, but you can't do it. Brain, you sweet, sweet little baby. It's okay. Come on back now. It's like you're training a puppy. You do this very gently. No anger towards your brain or your patterns. Brain, I asked you a question. What can I do? Your brain is a really interesting calculator, and the output very much depends on the input. Ask your brain the right questions. It will help you. How can I get out of this? Help me out, brain. What can we do? What can I do for myself, brain? What can I do to be kinder to myself? How can I change my life? You ask yourself that kind of question, your brain has the answers for you. It might take it a second, but they're in you. I fundamentally believe that we are our own biggest problem and we are our own best solution. Even in therapy, they're trying to point you towards the answers that are already in you. You already have everything you need. You are already everyone who you want to be. It's in you. But you have to choose it and reinforce it and commit to it. So that goes back to the 5 steps to better mental health. And 4 is routine. And that goes for shades, that goes for everything. Routine is so important because our bodies like autopilot so much. They want to maximize efficiency. So whenever possible, create structure in your day where you do the same things around the same time. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like if you say, I'm going to exercise every day at this time, it doesn't mean every day at that time you can only do one form of exercise. It could mean every day at this time I exercise. Some days I do yoga. Some days I go for walks. Some days I weightlift. I go with whatever feels right, but I exercise every day. It can be reading. I highly recommend that everyone read at least 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes a day. You've got this time, whether you listen to audiobooks or you actually physically read a book. But read something every day for 10 minutes a day that helps you grow in mind, body, or business. You are going to be blown away by how much awesome stuff is in your brain just waiting to be unlocked with the right information. 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day of reading. You are an idea machine, trust. But keep those routines because again, our bodies and brains want to do things the easy way. You know, in the same way that like you wake up and you just go pee or you go brush your teeth or make your coffee or do whatever, you don't have to think too hard. You don't have to force yourself to do it anymore because it's a part of your routine. Make more routines. Do whatever you can. And when you fall off of those routines, don't beat yourself up over it. It's not a relapse. You didn't fall off the wagon. You just fell asleep. Wake up and try again. You look at the situation. Where did I fall asleep? At what point did my autopilot kick in and push me to these old patterns? And another example I like to use here is if you're a person who knows you need to exercise every day, but you come home at the end of the day and you have a tendency to go to the couch, to sit down, and then the day just disappears. Take your gym equipment, take your weights, take your clothes, whatever, and put them on the couch. If that's where you fall asleep, is the couch, if that's where you go on autopilot and the day disappears, block that. Put your gym stuff there so when you come home and you start heading to that couch, you'll be like, huh? I can't sit down and scroll or watch TV. My gym stuff is here. And in that moment, that one moment that you'll get out of that, it's enough conscious awareness for you to be able to be like, I'm a person who exercises every day. I'm going to exercise. Okay. And then you go do it. So find the ways that you tend to fall asleep. Where do you tend to lose the most of your time? And then try to outsmart your automatic thinking. That's it. Find something else to wake yourself up out of it, whether it's an alarm you set on your phone, a post-it note you put on your monitor that says you don't play video games until you do this shit, whatever. You got this, but build those routines because over time, it will stick and it will free up so much energy. So much. So don't beat yourself up through any part of this process. But know that genuinely retraining your human suit is a surprisingly simple process. Notice everything without judgment. All of it. Your thought patterns, your behavior patterns, everything. Notice it. Ask yourself the question, is this what I want? If the answer is no, okay, what do I want instead? Because you can't just say, I don't want this. You have to choose something instead or else you'll just keep going back. That which we resist persists. If all you do is push away what you don't want, but you don't choose what you do want, you're stuck. And that feeling sucks. So notice it all. Decide what you want to carry forward, what you want to change, and then choose. And every time you notice that you have fallen asleep again, and you've done that thing that you've already claimed, I don't want to do this, figure out where you fell asleep and snap yourself out of it yet again. I have alarms on my phone, I have timers on my watch, I have stuff on my mirrors, I have put sticky notes all over my house, I write it in my journal, I talk to my friends in my community about it. If you're in my streams ever, you'll notice me using all this stuff on myself. Like I'll tell myself, I'm a person who stays hydrated. I take regular breaks. I am good with time management. I have good time management skills. I tell myself that all the time and I do my best to follow through. And over time, it sticks. I even do this in video games, yo. If I'm playing a game and I notice, like, cause I have the capacity to beast out in video games, but I get all caught up in my head and I mess it up. So when I notice that, I bring myself back. I am confident. I am calm. I have good reflexes. Or I'll even, if I tried a new character, like I was doing this in Destiny, I started playing as a Titan instead of a Hunter for a while. So I would start reminding my brain, I am a Titan. My jump is different. I have this kind of grenade. And I would just say it over and over again. And as a result, it stuck. It clicked faster. None of this is beyond any of you. The progress I was able to make in my life has nothing to do with me as a person and has everything to do with the fact that we are all so incredibly capable of this. Yeah, and I also tell myself I'm a person who blinks because I have a tendency to not blink. I might be a robot. Anyway. So routine is huge. Get yourself on a good routine. No more excuses. It doesn't matter if you want to do it or not. The things that we have to do for ourselves, we're not always going to want to do them. Motivation is bullshit. Give up on it. Forget it. It's nice when it shows up. You can be like, oh, nice, motivation's here. Come along. We're going to go do some stuff. But when motivation is being a little punk ass and it's hiding from you, who cares? You don't need it. Be disciplined. Seek to be disciplined as much as possible. So helpful. So helpful. And the final step in the 5 steps to better mental health is to talk. Talk to someone, talk to a therapist, talk to me, talk to the community, talk to your friends, talk to your family, call a hotline, get in Discord, talk to each other. If you know people who are struggling, reach out. Offer them more love, offer them more support. Don't try to fix them, just hold space for them. Ask them what they need from you. Ask them how you can help. We're all in this together, like genuinely, we really are. So that's the 4 lessons and the 5 steps. So just to reiterate everything, so hopefully it clicks. Lesson 1, accept that at all times you could be wrong about anything and everything, including the stuff that you think you're so right on, including all of your beliefs about where your future is going. You cannot predict the future, so stop. Stop. Lesson 2, the mind-body connection is real. The mind can impact the body can impact the mind. A lot of my chronic pain I dealt with in my life went away when my mind was healed. When I started improving in my mental health, my physical health improved. When I started improving my physical health, my mental health improved as well. Lesson 3 is to trust your gut and please know yourself. This is where that stillness is so important because Anxiety can masquerade as gut feelings. You might feel your gut telling you, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, but it might not be a gut feeling. It might just be fear. So learn to know yourself so that you can trust your gut. Lesson 4, you are in control. You have so much you can do for yourself, and you are not alone. You are not alone. Do your best to be here now, to stay present, to take care of yourself. And then remember the 5 steps to better mental health. Step 1 is to get organized, clean those spaces, eliminate toxicity, find joy, release those relationships that don't serve you. Step 2 is to get social. I know you can't do that in person right now, but you can still do it online. Try new hobbies. Creative ones especially are so great for your mind. Step 3 is the self-care. Remember SHADES. SHADES stands for sleep, hydration, air, diet, exercise, and stillness. Remember SHADES. Step 4 is routine. Keep yourself on a good routine. You got this. And step 5 is talk. Don't hold it all in. You're not the only one going through this. And I hope that by sharing more of what I've been through, and there's more, but I hope that by sharing a lot more of what I've been through, you can understand that when I say I get it, I get it. I know what it feels like to feel nothing. I know what it feels like to feel sad all the time, to feel miserable, to hate myself, to hate everyone else. I get it. But we don't have to keep that. We don't have to stay like that. None of that is a part of you. None of it. You don't have an anger problem. You experience anger like a lot of us do, and there's ways that you can change the way that you do that. But none of this is a part of you. It's not something solid in you, like you have a heart or like you have a body. So you don't have anger. You don't have a lot of this stuff. It's just stuff you experience, stuff that you haven't learned how to work with yet, stuff that you haven't learned how to change yet. Capone, what are you doing? Lay down, buddy. Lay down. Hey, it's 4:20. That's fun. So, I think that's the main stuff I wanted to share with all of you today. And like, remember SHADES above all else. I think that's a great place for us to start. And SHADES is something that has been co-signed by doctors too. So if you find esports health on social media, we actually did an interview and they created a YouTube series based on SHADES, where myself and some people who actually have knowledge of our bodies and of, medical stuff were able to kind of dissect that a little bit more. So do what you can when you can, and when you can't, give yourself a break. Peopling is hard. Peopling is hard. But you're so much more than you give yourself credit for. You're so much more. You are the consciousness. You are the soul. You're the spirit. You're not just a human. Not just anything. You're everything. You're everything. But thank you all for listening to me today. Like, sincerely, I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate you being so supportive, and thank you for all of the love.